Good morning. Today what we're going to cover are a couple of things. We're going to go over versions and we're going to go over context variables, locally and global context variables. Global context variables are basically you can create a context variable file over here in the repository, and that can be used in multiple jobs, okay? Or you can create a local context variable, which is just inside of the job itself, and use that. But first, let's start over here by creating a job. We're just going to create a job. We're going to call it CSV version control. It's not really version control, but we're going to call it version control. And here you can see your version of the job, 0.1. You can have a minor version or a major version. We're just going to keep it minor for consistency. I've already shown you how you can use the edit properties to add the purpose and description. If you don't want to add it now, we'll do that later. So we'll just click finish. And for the sake of speed, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on here, double click on this job, and I'm just going to copy this sub job right here. Copy that sub job, and actually I won't copy that sub job. I'll show you another little feature you can use. I'm gonna copy this job right here, this job, and I'm just gonna say duplicate, and I'm gonna call this here CSV file to versions two versions, and I'm gonna get rid of this here. Now what you'll see is this is the one we created. Let's delete that because we already created that job. It's locked. Sorry about that. I just got an extra job. I'm just gonna delete that job. And CSV file to versions. We double clicked on it, and here we see this job. I'm gonna just take out this connection because I want to make it, real simple. I don't want to have any database connections here. Okay, let's take the database connections out. The only thing I want to do, I don't mind having a map. Let me do this. To console. And let me take this out for the moment. And I'm going to go OK. And I'm going to change this right. Sub job. It's just going to be load data from CSV file version 0.1. Okay, and I'm gonna run it, and you can see the job is loaded to the console. Okay, but now what I want to do is create another version of this because I want to make changes to it. So I'm going to right click on the job, and I'm going to say open another version. This is the version that we just created when we did the duplicate. But now we're going to create another minor version. I could create a major, but I'm just going to create a minor just for consistency. And what you see is this 0.2 here now. Not 0.1 like all the other ones, but 0.2. Well, what happened to 0.2? Well, it's real simple. Nothing. We could go here, go to open another version, and open one, right? But if you noticed in one, I want you to see something here. It's grayed out. I can't add any more components to it. I can't even change the header. I can't change the header because the system assumes that since you're finished with this version that you don't want to make any changes to it. So therefore, it just becomes read-only. Okay, so it's just something to keep in mind. When you create a new version, you won't be able to change the old version, even if it's just to change the title. So this here is the new version, which is version 2. So we go here to version 2, and we're going to call this 2. And we're going to say using context variables. Okay. So here we have a tab called a context version tab, and over here we in the repository we have a tree called the context. Okay. What we're going to look at right now though is just local. We only want the context variables to work inside of this job right here. So let's just look at this component right here, which is the file input delimited. I'm going to turn the file name, which consists of the path and the file name, into a context variable along with the row separator and the field separator. How do I do that? I just click on the context tab. I'm going to have input file name, input file path, input file name, input row separator, input file separator. Okay. And I'm just going to type those names in here. Input file path. Sorry about that. Oh, fat fingers. Input file name. Input row separator. Input field separator. Okay. And now I'm going to add my values. This is the path because I'm reading from this path right here. Right? My file name is person data file CSV. Okay. My row input separator is the default. I'm leaving it as is. And my input separator is going to be the beautiful semicolon. Okay, which is the default for Talon. All right. Now, so for example, when you see in our local, we can also do this in a global, but when you see this in a local, what you see is we want to view the environments and manage our environments. Typically we have dev, test, and prod. So let me create those three environments by clicking on manage environments, dev, which I'm going to make as the default, test, and prod. Okay. Okay. Click. And I'm going to make dev the default, highlight this and just remove the term default. And notice what I have here. Dev is the default, prod, and test. And then inside of here, I can make my changes to prod and test. They're out of order, so I can go back in and put them in order simply by highlighting and then moving up and click OK. And now they're in order, dev, test, and prod. All right. So now I have my local context variables here. I can replace it into the file delimited. Highlight. I'm just going to type in context, period or dot, and there it is, the file path. I'm going to concatenate it with context, dot, control space, input file name. Context, dot, control space, row separator. Context, dot, control space, field separator. I still keep my header. And now what I'm going to do is simply run the job. The job is run. Bam! And all I did was just use context variables. Notice on the right hand side, we can click on here and we can switch locally whatever we want to run. You know, we can switch. You see that change here? Let's see if I can widen this up for you. Over here, you got prod data. When you do prod, if I were to select test, then I have test data. And then over here, I go back to my dev data. So that determines what I want to use. So this here is a job that uses local. Okay? So now what I can do is, if I wanted to, this is just manage your environment. It's not too much on that right there. And this is just manage your variables. It's not, you can just click on there and just see the variables. Well, these are the variables from the context repository over here. This is for SQL Server. We'll get to that a little later. But what you could do now is just say, hey, let me take these out. Let me not say that way. Let me do it this way. I'm going to take out the context variables that we have here. Okay. So that was local. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the following. File, output delimited. I'm going to write to this here, create a new output. Output. Just output. Okay. All right. Let me just map them using my tmap. You know, I like tmap, and I've already shown you what tmap can be used for. Click apply. Oh, sorry, that's my dog. She's chasing a squirrel. And so now what I have is two outputs. But I can go over here into my context in the repository, create context, and I'm just going to call it CSV context file variables. Okay, and then notice here we have a version, because I can change the versions as well. I'm just going to click next, and I'm going to do path name row field output. Okay, let me just open it up some. Now let me go in and add it here. Input file path. I'm gonna do something different here in the output. I'm gonna make it a pipe. Okay, I'm gonna keep the row separator the same. I'm going backwards, sorry about that. CSV file, I'm just gonna call it output. CSV output data. Okay, and I'm gonna keep the path the same. All right, and remember we have three environments typically: dev, test, prod. Okay, I'm gonna make dev the default. I'm gonna highlight here, remove. I'm gonna move test up. Okay, and click OK. And now you see I have my dev, my test, my prod, and all I'm gonna do here is if my dev 2, 3 test. I'll take this out here. Test. This is gonna be prod, and this is gonna be prod. And now what I have here is my three environments. I just click on finish. Notice I don't have anything in here. I'm gonna write out and output that file here. So how do I get my context variables from over here to over there? It's real simple. I can just go ahead and just move my context variables over. Notice the context variables are here, and voila, I have my context variables. Now I can just run my job. Oh, let me see. Oh, I'm sorry. I moved my variables over, and now in my output path, I type in context dot control, and I'm going output file path, concatenate context dot output file name. I already know my context dot control space row separator. That's input. We want it to be output. And over here, context dot control space output field separator. Go back here on my component, sync. Now what I can do is real simple. Run the job. I got my job written to the console. I have my job written to the output file, which is here, output data. When I open that up, you see I didn't add the header, but I could have added the header. But here is the file with the new field separator. Okay. If I want to add that header, it's pretty straightforward. I just go back into the output and I just say include header. And now I can just run it. If I go back in here now, here's my CSV file. It's going to have my header as well as the new separator. Okay. Now what I could do is I could use that, since I created here, it's more global. I can just create it in any of the jobs. And hopefully this tutorial was beneficial and you found some use for it.